Welcome back to the channel. I'm John Edward, and here we break down complex financial and geopolitical events into insights that actually make sense. Subscribe and enable notifications because today's breakdown reveals what most people are missing about this conflict. Vladimir Putin took a risky gamble, and I'm watching it unfold right now. On December 9th, as hypersonic Oreshnik missiles struck Lviv and drones rained down on Kyiv, the targets weren't military bases. They were civilian buildings, infrastructure facilities, and power plants. Putin was desperately trying to intimidate the West while hoping to subdue Ukrainians with freezing cold and darkness. He stood there confidently, claiming there's no chance of shooting down these missiles, challenging Western experts to prove him wrong. But the retaliation was swift, devastating, and absolutely brutal. Russian geography from Moscow to Belgar, from Oral to Litsk was engulfed in a ring of fire. Hundreds of thousands of homes were left without electricity and heating. Power outages brought social services to a standstill. Moscow's municipal services were paralyzed under the snowstorm. People at Shiratvo Airport were unable to retrieve their luggage. Flights were indefinitely postponed. Millions of people were in a state of panic, and I'm tracking every single development as it happens. The epicenter of this panic was the city of Belgar, which Russia used as its main logistics and supply base for its operations in Ukraine. The city was lit up by HIMARS missiles. At midnight, Russian air defense systems, including S-300 and Panzer batteries, were completely inadequate in countering the incoming threat. This wasn't a random bombardment. This was a meticulously planned energy strangulation operation. Exactly 8 missiles locked onto the city's lifelines, and I'm analyzing the target list right now. These precision strikes demonstrate how well Ukrainian intelligence knows Russian infrastructure. The missiles directly hit the Luch thermal power plant, the city's most critical energy production facility, and the Belgrade Skyor thermal power plant. The result was a complete system collapse. Within seconds, a city of 400,000 people was plunged into pitch darkness and freezing cold. The people left without heat or water in the freezing cold are lining up at gas stations in a last-ditch effort. A woman sharing on social media summed up the situation perfectly with bitter irony. Life in a city without electricity or heating is now much more fun. This has become routine for the Russian people, and it's getting worse by the hour. While this systematic darkness continues in Belgrade, the Ukrainian army has shifted into a strategic gear that's absolutely crushing Russian infrastructure. It attacked the life support unit in the city of Oral. The target was the Oral thermal power plant, the undisputed largest energy production facility in the region with an installed capacity of 330 megawatts. The Ukrainian GU unit's choice targeted Russia's biggest vulnerability in its winter defense. This plant is a cogeneration facility, meaning it doesn't just feed electricity into the grid. It also pumps tons of hot water to power the massive central heating system of the city of Orel. With kamikaze drones crashing into the turbine halls and control centers, a massive 330 megawatts of power instantly dropped off the grid. This wasn't a simple circuit breaker trip. This was a critical failure of the regional energy backbone. The moment the plant was hit, not only did the lights go out, but those massive water pumps also fell silent. With the outside temperature below freezing and the flow of hot water in the pipes cut off, the countdown began for the people of Oral. Restarting a thermal power plant, especially if it's been damaged, can take days or even weeks. Right now, thousands of people in Oral are facing the risk of frozen pipes bursting and their homes turning into ice boxes. The Salyut Gas Turbine Engineering and Production Center in Moscow was also a target of the attack. And this is where it gets really interesting. This is the beating heart of the Russian aerospace forces. The Salyut factory is the main production base for the AL-31F series engines that keep Su-27, Su-30, and modern Su-35 fighter jets in the skies. Ukraine's long-range drones penetrated the layered structure of Russia's air defense umbrella, known as the Moscow Shield, and reached this facility directly. The images that emerged documented much more than a simple fire. They documented the transition of a strategic asset to a destroyed status. A jet engine factory houses extremely sensitive calibration devices, special alloys, and high-tech assembly lines. The intense flames that collapsed the Facto's roof and engulfed the production halls inside, also melted the engine blocks for dozens of fighter jets that Russia was set to produce in the coming months. This attack is 10 times more destructive than shooting down a plane on the front lines, because if you shoot down a plane, you lose one unit, but if you burn down the engine factory, you ground the entire fleet. As production lines in Moscow melted away, night suddenly turned to day in Litsk Oblast. Ukraine's long-range kamikaze drones successfully struck the Usman oil depot, which supplies Russian armored units. This attack is a complete logistical strangulation for the Russian army. Those burning tanks contained diesel fuel that powered the T-90 tanks on the front lines and jet fuel that powered combat aircraft. Now that fuel is rising as black smoke in the skies above Usman rather than powering Russian tank engines. You don't need to be a military expert to understand what I'm looking at. Right now, Belgrade isn't just a civilian settlement, it's a massive logistical platform that powers all military shipments, ammunition depots, and command centers for Ukraine's northern front. With the Luch and Belgar-Skyor thermal power plants out of commission, everything from the region's railway signaling systems to military hospitals, from the automation systems of logistics depots to the base stations that provide communications instantly went down. The destruction of a power plant triggers a chain of disasters extending to tanks on the front line running out of fuel. When the power grid collapses, cranes at railway terminals stop working, fuel pumps cease, and military data flow is interrupted. This is in essence a systemic failure that's unraveling before our eyes. The situation in Orel points to a technically more dire dimension that I'm monitoring closely. Modern Russian cities are heated by hot water pipes coming from a central source. When the power goes out, the pumps stop. And when the pumps stop, the water in the pipes freezes. If the pipes freeze, the expanding ice bursts the metal lines. Once this happens, it can take months to restore the system. The attack on the Salute factory is a strategic hammer blow to Russia's future military capacity. Producing a jet engine requires the assembly of thousands of precision parts and special alloys. The heat generated by the fire and explosion has turned these precision manufacturing devices into piles of metal. With the burning of fuel tanks, the energy needed for Russian tanks and aircraft rose as smoke into the skies of Usman. In a battlefield without fuel, even the world's most advanced weapon systems become nothing more than trapped piles of metal. Now, here's what really matters as I'm analyzing this situation in real time. This series of attacks isn't just a military operation, it's a strategic move that fundamentally shakes the famous social contract Putin made with his people. What Putin has promised the Russian people for years is simple. Give me your political loyalty and I will provide you with security and stability. However, the burning of a factory in central Moscow, the blackout in Belgar, and the panic at airports prove how empty this promise is. This collapse of the home front has ushered in an era where the war is felt not only on Ukrainian soil, but also in the kitchen, living room, and workplace of every Russian citizen. While Putin tries to intimidate the West and Ukraine with Oreshnik missiles, Ukraine is shattering this image of invincibility with concrete blows on the ground. Ukraine is responding to the Kremlin's high-tech dual intimidation with lower cost but far more effective asymmetric methods. Do you see what's happening here? A state that cannot protect critical facilities deep within Russia is rapidly losing its ability to use nuclear or hypersonic threats as deterrents. This systematic victimization of civilians, particularly in regions such as Belgar and Orel, is creating a state of panic and chaos that the regime cannot control. Civilian videos circulating on Telegram channels instantly refute local officials' claims that the situation is under control. This is the collapse of the wall of illusion within Russia. The people are experiencing firsthand that the state cannot protect them and that they may even be deprived of their most basic needs, such as electricity and heat. This psychological breakdown is far more dangerous than the morale of soldiers on the front lines because this situation directly targets the regime's legitimacy and its image of strong leadership. Furthermore, the targeting of strategic production facilities in Moscow is also causing elite panic among Russian oligarchs, seeing that their own factories and assets aren't safe. This segment may have begun to seek a future in safe havens such as Dubai or Istanbul. This situation will deepen the cracks within the Kremlin and lead to questions about the loyalty of Putin's inner circle. Ukraine's energy and industrial strangulation campaign is pushing Russia into a process of collapse, not only militarily, but also economically and socially. Putin's ambitious Oreshnik show brings as little light as a street lamp in Belgar plunged into darkness. The physical destruction of war is now at the heart of Russia, and this reality is too glaring to be concealed by any propaganda machine. For Russia, the message that there is no safe place has now become a painful reality rather than a warning. However, Putin is trying to compensate for the control he's lost internally with a massive wave of fear externally, and I'm watching this desperation unfold right now. The hypersonic Oreshnik missile Putin tested in Ukrainian skies was designed as a strategic nightmare, not just for Kyiv, but for all European capitals. This weapon is the Kremlin's harshest message to the West. There is no shield to protect you. Oreshnik is a weapon that reaches unimaginable speeds of Mach 10 in its terminal phase, too fast for radars to detect and impossible for any existing air defense system to intercept. However, OSENT reports and technical analyses from Ukraine document that Oreshnik is more of a strategic illusion than a military gameshow. Statements made by Lviv MP Nahorniak fundamentally undermine the devastation narrative surrounding this hypersonic threat. According to Nahorniak, the gas infrastructure, the most critical point in the region, was not targeted by Oreshnik missiles and did not suffer any direct damage. The limited effects recorded are due to shock waves created by munitions that missed their target rather than direct hits from the missiles. From a doctrine debunking perspective, this situation shows that billions of dollars worth of hypersonic technology is insufficient to even cut off a region's energy lifeline. Even more striking are the technical details shared by Serhiy Flash, head of the Ukrainian Radio Engineering Center. Flash, referring to post-attack investigations, stated that Oreshnik only broke 2 ceiling panels in the building and that its greatest achievement was burning Lenin's works in the library, thus demolishing the technical capabilities of this so-called miracle weapon. With a sarcastic tone, Putin's offer of a high-tech jewel has turned into a fiasco that cannot even pierce the ceiling of a building on the ground. This is a prime example of a critical failure for the Russian military industry, and I'm documenting every embarrassing detail. Faced with this paper tiger technology, Europe is strengthening its position at the table by increasing its diplomatic weight internally rather than succumbing to the panic and chaos Putin expected. Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni's recent statements aren't an expression of fear, but rather Europe's determination to be an actor, not a supporting player in this crisis. Meloni emphasizes that Europe must initiate high-level dialogue with Russia, arguing that this isn't to surrender to Putin, but to ensure that Europeans are at the center of the solution. Supporting Macron's call to draw our own framework rather than trusting American negotiators, Meloni aims to safeguard Europe's strategic autonomy. At a press conference in Rome, Meloni took a clear stance that would weaken Putin's hand, firmly rejecting the proposal to lead Russia to the G7. This is the most concrete proof that the West has not bowed to Putin's nuclear and hypersonic blackmail. Can you imagine the desperation in the Kremlin right now? Meloni defines talks with Russia not as a sign of weakness, but as a method of protecting Europe's interests by talking to both sides on the ground. The dramatic diplomatic breakdown Putin had hoped for did not materialize. On the contrary, Europe has overcome the chaos created by its diversity of voices and reached the point of dealing with the Kremlin through a single representative. Italy's cautious stance on sending troops to Ukraine isn't a step backward, but a strategic choice based on confidence in collective defense guarantees, similar to NATO's Article 5, and the belief that these guarantees should also apply to Ukraine. Meloni argues that the way to secure peace isn't to flee from Putin's threats, but to make Ukraine an integral part of Europe's security architecture. The illusion of an invincible Russia sought to be created with Oreshnik missiles is being wiped out one by Ukraine's unwavering resistance and the West's determined diplomatic moves, while Putin hopes to shatter European unity and create a wave of panic with his hypersonic blackmail. He finds himself on a new strategic chessboard drawn by Maloney and Macron, where the terms are dictated by Europe. While the Kremlin's miracle weapon can only burn dusty books on library shelves, the Western world is demonstrating its determination to build Ukraine's future and stop Russian expansionism in a more authoritative tone than ever before. The outcome is clear as I'm analyzing this situation right now. The physical destruction of war has now reached Russia's heart, and the last cards left in Putin's hand are nothing more than propaganda tools with no military counterpart on the ground. That ominous darkness, previously believed to be the fate of only Ukrainian cities, now envelops the Kremlin's strategic horizon alongside Oreshnik's failure. In this equation, Putin's myth of invincibility is gone. Now only Russia's systematic collapse and the West's unshakable strategic checkmate remain on the stage. If you found this breakdown insightful, subscribe to John Edward, hit the bell icon, and share this video because understanding the intersection of money, power, and strategy is more important today than ever. What do you think about Putin's collapsing strategy? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Stay informed, stay prepared, and we'll continue uncovering the moves shaping our